Thank you, Dr. Evans. Madam Vice President, you can go ahead and gavel us in, and then the principal of the charter school will introduce himself. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Kathy Evans Brown, Vice President of Executive Affairs and East District Board Member. So I will be chairing this meeting this evening. I'm going to start by introducing the principal of Health Sciences Charter School for the charter renewal public hearing. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. My name is Jamie Venning. I'm the head of the Health Sciences Charter School. I've been there 5 years. If you don't know us, we're on Ellicott Street, right down by East Utica Station. I am presenting today for purposes of a public hearing to talk about our charter renewal and talk about the successes the school has experienced and a little bit about who we are. Next slide, please. So who we are, we have kind of a lengthy mission statement around this, but Health Sciences Charter School is an urban school. We have authentic, meaningful, culturally relevant activities and curriculum that mirror the demographics of our student population. Our health sciences-based curriculum provides a unique experience to set our students up to pursue multiple career paths in the health industry. And that's how our school was started. It was actually a collaboration of the local hospitals and healthcare institutions that formed our original board and helped write our original charter. Next slide, please. Our mission, while we do have a health and careers focus, our mission is on students and our community. So we're a high school, we're a 9 through 12. We have an academically challenging learning environment, and our goals are to prepare our students to communicate effectively, think and reason critically, value diversity, engage in student learning and service learning, pursue academic excellence, obtain sustainable and quality careers in the healthcare industry, and most importantly to us is become a productive and valued member successfully within our community. Being in the heart of the East Side, we serve a majority of East Side students, and I'll talk about demographics shortly. But at the end of the day, we like to think of ourselves as the second family to our students as they journey into their adult and career successes. Next slide, please. Our school vision is relatively simple. We want to be recognized as the premier charter school and career readiness model in New York State. Next slide, please. So I did talk about the beginnings of our school, the humble beginnings of a group of healthcare partners identifying needs within our community and the workforce within the East Side, right around the hospital hub. But that's only that's the starting part of our partnerships. So we have over 30 recognized and actively participating community partners, and they span the spectrum of higher educational institutions, post-secondary institutions, healthcare institutions, hospitals, local employers, community service providers, and community organizations and non-for-profits as well. I don't know if he's going to hear me, but next slide, please. Some of the items that we've been asked to talk about are recruiting. And so for us, our recruitment sites are relatively limited to the charter school fair, the charter schools within the region that don't have high school feeders, and then a bigger one that's not on the list, which is our community. A lot of word of mouth, a lot of graduates, and a lot of community organizations that are active within our school are an avenue for us to reach potential students. Next slide, please. Talking about some very specific and special populations and our activities around enrollment and retention for those special populations. The first one is, it's important to note that we do reflect the East Side. We are 100% free and reduced lunch, and our poverty rate for economically disadvantaged special populations hovers anywhere from the high 80s to low 90 percentiles year to year. It's important to note that our students are not only coming here, but they're coming with challenges both financially and academically. On here, you can see a list of our efforts and really what our retention efforts look like for our special populations are a lot of increased access to services. And you can see there's a list of services, just a general introduction to some of those services. But for us, that's community and family support. We look at the holistic family. We look at trying to communicate as a whole, and we want to be a participant with the parents helping to lead, as well as community outreach to support our families in times of need. Next slide, please. The next special population that are always identified when we talk about program renewal and reflecting the community is our L population, that's English language learners. We do struggle a little bit here in terms of English language learners. We hover around 3% over the last 5 years as an average for our students. But some important things to note, we have a very robust program, and when we talk about family in the school, we talk about community identity, but also cultural identity. One of the things we do for recruiting is to bring in community organizations from the outside that do reflect those diverse beliefs and systems from other communities, and particularly for students of need that are struggling with English language. We do have our L teacher is bilingual. We have other teachers that have some bilingual capabilities. We have push-in and pull-out services for our L students, as well as the normal services required. Next slide, please. Students with disabilities, we have a very robust internal support mechanism for our students with disabilities. We also have a very high success rate for students with disabilities. In our program with our retention efforts, it really boils down to supports and how do we look different. These are students that have different needs. So we have on campus, we are an integrated co-teaching model. And we have teachers that push into the core academic classes. So not only is there a classroom teacher in those classes, particularly when there are special populations involved, but we also have additional SWAN teachers, we call them, students of special need. We also have SWAN teams that meet daily. So our teams, we believe in PLCs. The PLCs meet and talk about students and challenging students, as well as our RTI model. With our students here, we also provide additional academic supports, both push in and pull out. After school programming, we also have TAs, teaching assistants, that we've brought up in order to start to grow talent internally, and I'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward. Next slide, please. So our academic supports for these special populations, but I would also say that any student at risk at health sciences does not go unnoticed. We regularly meet on student progression. Our PLCs, our learning communities, the teachers meet to talk and identify student progression. Our at-risk teams look at students, and we look at that student holistically, as well as what are the barriers beyond academics that we can focus on. Some of our increased supports include the integrated co-teaching model in ELA, math, social studies, and science. We have the daily resource room. We have the intervention team. We provide counseling. So we're a school of about 450 students. We have 2 full-time counselors, 1 full-time social worker, as well as an external agency to provide services outside of the school for emotional supports and social supports. Our teachers use a variety of techniques. Our L teacher not only works with those students, but pushes into classes and crafts learning plans for students who are either at risk or challenged. And our SWAN teams meet as an identified team. Next slide, please. What you'll find, we are a charter school, we're supposed to innovate. We do. We particularly innovated aggressively. An example of that is, we're very poised institutionally to make quick change. When COVID hit, we went to a 1-to-1 system within 24 hours for our students, providing the ability to access work outside of school so they could still progress when we were closed for COVID. But that didn't stop there. That was the beginning of some of our creative approaches. So we use a standards-based grading system. Why? Because it helps our students and our staff, as well as our parents, to do progress monitoring and progression monitoring for our students. It also gives our students opportunities to come back and achieve mastery when they're performing under par. We want them to be at grade level, and this is a model that seems to be helping quite a bit. We believe in our professional learning communities. All of our teachers meet as a learning community once a day for a full class period. They get a planning prep and a PLC planning where they do meet and they look at their exam results, student progressions, and then student concerns. We've adopted any and all of the multiple pathways to graduation for students. And as you see, there's about 7 that are coming out. We've adopted 4 recently, from CDOS to ART to the civic readiness model. So we have students who have different opportunities. While we have a focus on healthcare, our true focus is student first and what those needs are individually. We have an alternative education program, and I'll talk a little more about that as we move forward, where 80% of our students who had gone through progressive discipline all the way up to and including hearings, student hearings with independent hearing officers. We have an 80% success rate of those students pushing back into our building, and I can talk about those specifics when we get there. We have Regents acceleration opportunities for students, as well as dual enrollment models. We had over 30 students take advantage of dual enrollment models where they got college credit while in their high school year. We had over 30 students and over about 50 classes that were delivered for 3 college credits per class. And that's transcriptable credit for our students at a reduced rate, and the school helps economically with that as well. We are building certification programs. I kind of refer to it as CTE Light. We want college and career readiness. We want our students to walk out not only ready for the real world, but employable while they're going to college or achieving their next set of dreams. The first program that will be in place this year is Certified Personal Trainer. We've built that in both academically and through a certification that's recognized nationally. And that's our goal, is that a program not only helps academically, will also have a college experience, but also leads to a professional certification for employment. The next programs we're looking at some relationships with local colleges around OTA and PTA, as well as CNA, and we'll have that in place with community partnerships this year. We also want to focus on evening events for our families who can have access to the same certification and employment programming. We are an SAT school. We believe our students need to be prepared. It is the benchmark predictor for college success. All students take the SATs for 2 years. Their junior, senior year. It mirrors any of our local high schools as well. We have the Young Doctors Club, as well as a lot of after-school programming. We entice our students to stay after school. When not only is it rigorous academics, but it's also social, emotional, and club opportunities. We also do Saturday schooling as needed for students, and we do some at-risk and tutoring, mandatory tutoring for students who are participating in athletics. Next slide, please. One of the big questions that I thought really was focused to us was around student retention, right? There's this kind of belief that charter schools pick and choose their students. We do not. We accept all students who apply until we get to our wait list. We do run our lottery, a blind lottery. With that, obviously, we want to retain our students, but things happen. So what you have up there is a display of our student transfers from last year. We'll focus on that. We had 46 students leave our campus last year for various reasons. You can see the upper 50% of that pie chart are kind of very predictable reason, transitions to moving to other places. What I'll look at for you guys is our expulsion rate. I know you wanted to talk about that. So out of those 46 students, we had 13 students who went progressive discipline to an independent hearing officer and were looking for a different placement. We built a cohort of 20 students for alternative ed. Our alternative ed program looks very different. It models best practice. It includes separate location. It's highly staffed with both a teacher and a teaching assistant. And I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. But when we talk about our success rate, next slide, please. 80% of the students that were pushed into that program are back either in our school or graduating with a Regents diploma, 80%. And we've delivered that program for the last 3 years. We've seen that success echoed, and you can see the demographics of the students that are going into that alternative instruction. But a couple of the extra pieces there, we do push-in counseling, we do mentoring, we do the crew model with adult check-ins. We do group activities for those students. They have access to all the additional supports that we have in program and on campus, and they also have full access to after-school programming and extra help after school if they need to be meeting with their teachers. And the impact of our alternative ed program absolutely is graduation, and that's our goal for all of our students. And just as an aside, on that year where we had that level of students, over the course of that academic year, we did transfer in an additional 22 Buffalo Public students. So not only are we taking our students at risk and getting them success, but when there is room, we're bringing more students in as we can. Next slide, please. We have a large focus on work-based learning, so we look at a whole child when we build our school opportunities, and we want our students to explore careers. We've built that in. All students participate in work-based learning in one way, shape, or form. Students who enjoy work-based learning or are looking for a CDOS pathway, that's Career Development Occupational Studies programming for Regents. It's a +1 graduation pathway. They can kind of focus on it in their junior, senior year. What we found is it really gives better awareness for careers. It helps students with their overall outcomes afterwards. And for some of our students, because we do place students in internships everywhere possible, particularly the students focused in CDOS, oftentimes lead to offers of employment. Next slide, please. The next two slides are the nuts and bolts of our graduation rates by demographic. What you're going to find, a couple trends here, and I won't just give you all of the statistics, you have them in front of you. Consistently over the last 4 years, Health Sciences Charter School graduated well over 90% of students. That's consistently across 4 years. You'll see that that percentage of students that graduated is close to 100% of Regents diploma. And you have those, but most special populations, almost 100% of those students are getting Regents diplomas, and we're well into the 90, almost 92nd percentile of graduation within a 4-year path. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So that's just a 4-year breakdown. So let's talk about our grade levels and capacity. Our max capacity is 480 students. We like to keep it around 450. What you have in front of you is our current breakdown by grade level of students. 126 freshmen currently enrolled, 120 10th graders, 104 11th graders, and 97 12th grade students. You will note on the right-hand side, we do hold a wait list. If we can bring students in, we love bringing them in. We want to stay at capacity, and we want students who are applying to come in. And you'll see there we have quite a few students on our wait list, and I give that credit to our staff, our family push, and our footprint within the community. Next slide, please. So these are the student demographics New York State looks at. They are also demographics that you're going to see over the course of years absolutely reflect the East Side and where we are. We're 90% African-American students, as well as other minorities are recognized in our community. Our numbers, students with disabilities, we hover that right around 13%, 90+% economically disadvantaged. So we are taking care of the very students that live in our community locally on the East Side. You have the real breakdown by year there as well. 2 slides, please. So you had them over the last 5 years. There we go. Staff demographics. I'm particularly proud of this as well. With the exception of the COVID year, which hit education very tough on people with career changes, we hover around about an 80% retention rate with staff. And it's for a couple different reasons, but I would point to the graph on the right. We have a goal of making sure that our students are taught by people that look like them, and we honor this aggressively. And when you look at our demographics, our staff demographics, compared to the state, we're very relevant in terms of representing our student body. We have 48% African-American employees, 10% Hispanic, 60% are female, and a few Pacific Islanders and Hispanic, 10% I said as well. So that's important. One of the reasons staff stay and one of the reasons staff come to us is because we do a lot to help our staff grow just like our children. Education is a lifelong journey. So we do tuition assistance for our teachers. We want them constantly getting better. We want them achieving certifications and diverse certifications. We have pathways to promotion. I'm incredibly proud to talk about the fact that we have 3 graduates who currently are full-time employees at Health Sciences Charter School. That speaks to our commitment to our kids and their want to come back. Many of our teachers, when they come in, are struggling and they're trying to get certified, so we help with that process as well. And we have a teaching assistant model where students can come in, decide if they want to explore education as a career field, And then we help them even at a teaching assistant level with those college courses and progression to mastery at the educational level required for certification. Next slide, please. The nuts and bolts on our finances, as you probably know, charter schools do not receive capital funding. So when we start, it's very much a business model. Currently, Health Sciences has $6.4 million in debt. Overall, it's financed, it's stable. We have $5,200,000 in reserves. So we are coming up, we'll pay about half of our debt off this year, and then we'll look to a 5-year refinance with a goal of in 10 years, 5 more years after this year, because in December we're refinancing our debt load and paying some off. And so hopefully in 5 years after that, we'll be done with our debt and we'll be running fully in the green. But we do operationally operate right in the green. Next slide, please. Just an important thing. We started with this. I'm going to kind of finish with it and bring us back to what we're truly about, which is Health Sciences Charter School in our community. Our students have to do 100 hours of community service in order to graduate. These are tracked community service hours. They often penetrate out to the community because it's community service. It's not just internal. We also have multiple external partners that help with these opportunities. We have summer programming where we bring students and communities in for those programmings. And we also like to tether our students or connect them and families to services within our community. And that's all represented with our push for that and our work-based learning. Next slide, please, the last one. Just a sample here of some of our different organizations and different partnerships and different events as we try to open our school up and bring our community members and our students and families into the building. This is just a list of some of the events that we did last year. You'll notice they kind of run a gambit of diversity around representing our student body. With that, it was important that I left a little time at the end for questions. And so I'll open the floor, if I can be so bold as to open the floor if there are any questions for Health Sciences Charter School.
Yes, thank you, Principal. I didn't get your name. Can you just tell me your name again?
Yep, my name is Jamie Venning, V as in Victor, E-N-N-I-N-G.
Now, are you fairly new in this role, Mr. Venning?
I've been head of schools for about 3.5 years.
3.5 years. And what was the principal's name before you?
Well, our current principal is Robert Baxter. He's here in the room. I'm head of schools. Our previous head of schools was Hank Stupinski.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm asking that question because 3 years ago, it might have been 4, I had just got on the board in 2019. There was a different head of school, and I was really impressed with the graduation rates, particularly of the African American males at the same school. And so I'm glad to see that the rates are still similar to that time. So I'm going to chair the meeting. I see a couple of my colleagues, a few of my colleagues are here present for this renewal. And so I'm going to give them an opportunity to ask questions, comment, you know, et cetera. So I'm going to start with Terrence Hurd, who's here. Hey, Terrence.
Hello.
Go ahead, Terrence.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I'm having some horrible connectivity issues today. My
We can hear
computer
you real
decided to
good.
upload, and I really can't hear you too well. So I just like to say about the program. I do like the program over at Health Science Charter School. I visit there many times and recently jumped in before the beginning of the school year. I spoke with the principal, Robert Baxter, and I'm sorry, forgive me. Spoke with the principal, Robert Baxter, and I do love the program over there. That's one of the only programs that I see in Buffalo that has an abundance amount of African American teachers that's working with a large African American population. I missed the beginning of the program. Could you please tell me again how many students you have and how many students of color that you have in that program?
We hover right around 450 students, and we're about 90% African American.
100%. That's outstanding. And your staff members, how many staff members do you have?
We have about 65 staff members. I can give you the demographics. You also have statistics in here if you need. But our staff demographics are 48% African American, 60% female, 10% Hispanic, 40% white is the breakdown of our staffing.
Okay, that's great. I mean, the numbers are outstanding, and I do love the culture over there at the school. And one thing I can say about the Health Science Charter Program also is that I know that charter schools has, you presented your numbers a little earlier about 48 students that left the program, but I do know some students that graduated from your program recently as last year that I know that they have a lot of troubles, amongst them, their family life and legal troubles, but you did keep those students on board and stay with them until they graduated and still looking after them. So I just really commend the program and the work that you guys doing over there. Continue the good work, and also our alliances that we have in our sports programs that we do work with the Buffalo Schools and Health Science Charter Program. So let's continue with these partnerships and see how we can both grow together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Hurd. Okay, so next we have Board Member Cindy McCutcheon.
Hello.
Hello.
So I also entered a little bit late, so my apologies. Unfortunately, I was trying to end my last meeting to get here in time, and it went over. So I missed the beginning of the presentation. I am actually going through your slides right now, so I don't have direct questions for you in this moment. I may, circle back towards the end, but I am going through the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. I'll move on to, I think I saw, okay, so clearly, she left, Mikowski. So, Larry Scott, Board Member Larry Scott, Vice President Student Achievement, you're on.
Thank you, Dr. Evans-Brown. Thank you for all the information, and give you credit for really being upfront, transparent on the data. However, sometimes, and it's my approach too, when you share information, it comes with some scrutiny. So if we could go back to the student retention and placements slide.
Yep.
Just for further explanation there. So last school year, you had 46 students that ended up
Not leaving
for some reason. The 29% were expelled from the school?
Well, expelled is not the correct word. They went through progressive discipline up to what would have led to potential expulsion, yes. And so that represents 13 students that year.
Okay, so they progressively worked up to the point where they reached the categorization of expulsion.
But those students were then placed in alternative ed with the exception of one, because alternative ed placement is voluntary.
Alternative ed through health sciences.
Yeah.
And then, so those 13, how many, I think you said 80%?
80% returned, yeah. I don't have.
Returned back to?
Yeah. And or graduated.
Or graduated.
Returned back to normal programming.
And then the 20%?
Those traditionally either go back to district or drop out, yeah, unfortunately.
So would that number then be reflected in, because you do have a return to district number at 13%?
Yeah, but that's for varying reasons. That's not just discipline. I gave you my whole kind of the entire discipline for the whole school, and that am I talking wrong? What are you asking me again?
Well, I'm wondering what the 20% that weren't successful, they ended up somewhere else.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if that's reflected in the 13% that return to district, or is that another number that's still falling under the expulsion in this chart?
I apologize that I didn't generate that specific data, but I'd be happy to follow up with you.
Okay. No, and I'm just noting that you have 13% that return to district that you know of, but potentially there are more of those students that left health sciences that also then ended up in one of our BPS schools.
I mean, that's tough data for me to give you. I can give, like, they leave, you know, when they exit, we try to follow up with them or support them. I don't know what the number is for you, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then the 20 consecutive absences, explain that to me.
So New York State says that if a student isn't attending for 20 consecutive days, you have to pull them from your rolls. So those are students that after, like, we're calling every day, we're working on them, but that's a student that's not attended at all for a gap of at least 20 days.
So after they miss 20 days, you remove them from your enrollment.
They have to be dropped, yeah.
Help me, we don't
If
have
they're a certain age. If they're,
certain age.
if they're non-compulsory age, but if they're between, for us, it's 6 and 17, they don't get dropped. We don't drop them. We have to keep them on our rolls.
Okay, okay. So then, from that group of students, which you have, is it 13%?
I believe so, yes.
Those students potentially end up somewhere else, possibly a BPS school as well.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say no to that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They're
I just to give a full impact of these students not being retained, not succeeding the entire 9 to 12 career, that there is some consequence to that or some outcome that's impacting other systems.
Okay.
That you know isn't clearly indicated here. And then the residential placement, is that 2%?
I don't have my glasses. I believe so, yes.
And what does that entail?
So McKinney-Vento, psychiatric placements, residential, so like full term. It's not things that we're driving. Those are almost always socioeconomic and, you know, outside of the school.
Okay. So it could be like court placed or psychiatric placement?
Yep.
Maybe
Yep.
special ed placement?
We haven't experienced that yet, to my knowledge, at least while I've seen it. Not yet for special ed.
Okay.
But we do, you know, we're not getting super high need because I don't have standalone special ed classrooms.
And then how many, so your enrollment, it looks like your total enrollment is about 447 right now?
Yeah, good for you, yeah.
How many of the expelled students last year were seniors?
Actually, the next slide actually has that breakdown. I just can't see it. Can you go one slide forward, please? So can you just ask me again that question? How many were seniors?
Do you know, how many?
Right here, right there. Is that
13
breakdown
students
for your
were seniors?
by grade level?
12th grade, it was 6.7%. It looks like the really dark burgundy color.
6.7% of the.
We're seniors that went to alternative ed.
Went to alternative ed. Okay. And then, do you know how many of the 13% of the students that had 20 consecutive absences, how many of those are seniors?
I don't know, but I can get that for you.
And I'm also seeing for your enrollment, you start high at 126 for 9th grade, and then it drops to 12th grade. So I'm guessing as they progress through 9 to 12, there's more exiting, obviously. And then, but it looks like you have room on you have 40 students waitlisted and only are enrolling 97.
Is that a question? I'm not.
Well, you said you have capacity for 120.
120 at grade level, yeah.
And you only have 97 enrolled, but you have 40 that are on the wait list.
Yes.
So what's preventing those 40 students from getting selected?
Well, they got waitlisted because they
capacity.
they chose us, so they're on our lottery and we put them on our wait list, but we also look at our capacity. Like if you're a senior and I can't make a schedule for you and I can't help you graduate, then chances are you're gonna, you know, I'm not a great placement for you. We talk to our families. So we have a couple on wait list. A couple of them are talking about eligibility for athletics, so that, you know, that changes their opinion. Those are numbers from a couple weeks ago, and that was our, you know, who we had post lottery.
Would they also include capacity though? The capacity to serve these students?
If we have capacity, we bring them in. They come in.
But you do
Well,
have capacity.
Well, we have room based on our charter at 480, but is that what's best for kids when you look at class size and how many kids can sit in a freshman classroom?
So there is some selection that's occurring.
It's not.
Who's enrolling and who's then being taken off your rolls.
We're not selecting them. Like, students are leaving or coming for the very reasons that I discussed. And then we have a wait list, and as we can fit kids into a schedule, we just pull from the wait list. I don't pick and choose the wait list. There's not, you know, the ranking of the wait list was whoever made it on there first.
Well, you said something about if you can't make a schedule for them, like.
Well, when they, like a senior, because that's the one I'm worried about. If a senior doesn't have regents, I can't help them graduate. So if they're coming to me super unserved, or I just don't have capacity, right?
Yeah, I don't expect you to respond to this, but yet your graduations rates look great, but clearly there is some weeding out of students and some selection that's occurring.
Well, you're perceiving that, but
you pretty much answered that when you said you took kids off your rolls and you have 40 kids on your wait list and you're being selective on those kids entering and enrolling in your program when you have openings at capacity of 120.
Okay. You know, I mean, you're going to have an opinion there, but we don't. We work real hard. Our kids graduate for a reason. It's because we work real hard. They're there in the summers. They're there after school.
But what you stated was fact.
Mr. Baxter, did you want to add something? This is Rob Baxter, our principal.
Yes. Hi, Larry.
Hi.
Real simple. For enrollment years, some years are higher than others as far as for the incoming freshman class. Like those latter years you're seeing in the junior, senior years. Well, that freshman cohort wasn't as high to begin to start with. And for us, when we enroll people for our charter in those junior and senior years, like we have a health science curriculum, right? So you can't decide, oh, I want to come here my senior year. And if you weren't at a similar type school, we might not be able to have a schedule for you because you didn't take the prerequisites of things that you need to do here, right? And so we're not interested in just graduating students. We want to graduate students into the health sciences career. So that's part of what you're seeing. So they're not technically, if you look at the data snapshot that you're looking at the freshmen starting at 126, and here you have the seniors at 97. It didn't start like everyone's just leaving and this is who we left off with. We also take in students, so we took in a significant amount of at the end of the year, this particular last year, it was a +2 or -2 students based on who we took in from the district and who left. And that expulsion rate you're looking at, that's for the whole school. That means some may have gone to Buffalo, some may have gone to Cheektowaga, some may have gone to Williamsville. It's for the whole out of district period. So we're talking particularly for Buffalo. I think we had a +2 or -2 exchange rate by the end of the year. That many went out and +2 or -2 came. And so it speaks to especially this population of students and families, high poverty, the transient level. So you got some kids who can move from one part of Buffalo to the other, and they'll say, like, oh, I'm going to go back to South Park because it's closer for me to get there. But those numbers that you're looking at for us, we don't pick and choose as far as who leaves and who comes. Really, if they're with us as freshmen, they're going through our curriculum and they usually stay with us. The seniors, it's really difficult to transfer to us as a senior if you didn't have a particular health science curriculum, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we could probably all agree that there are several students that get to their senior year that don't have aren't going to have enough credits to graduate at the end of the 12th grade. So that's going to happen anywhere. But they still have to be enrolled and receive an education.
Right, for us. And then like I said, for our charter curriculum, we have a health science focus. Like if I was at Maritime, we have a military focus. And so some of those kids who may have tried to come to us with, like, what is naval science? That does nothing for me at health science, right? So we look at what's best for the individual kid, right? So we're not taking kids and we could. We're athletic powerhouse, and people confuse us that we take anybody, but we don't. It's really based on that curriculum first. We want to produce the person that's going to be your doctor, nurse, or whatever you're doing.
And so then would some of those students then remain on your wait list even if you feel they don't qualify?
You can remain on the wait list. How they get removed is like when a spot comes up, we simply ask you, are you ready to take this? And usually what happens, you probably know this from all the charters, because there's a lot of kids apply to many different schools, not just Buffalo schools, but charter schools. So kids will come and they'll fill the paperwork, the families will fill the paperwork out, and then all of a sudden they say, hey, I want to go over here with my cousin to this school. So some of that transiency that I looked at is because kids will start at one school, but make a decision to go to another school. All their paperwork is in. So it's throughout the district, the city of Buffalo, going from school to school to school.
Thank you.
All right, look, Board Member Scott, are you done with your questions?
I have concluded. Thank you, Dr. Evans-Brown.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, Buffalo, well, fortunately or unfortunately, Buffalo Public Schools, we take them all. We take everybody. We can't deny students entry or admission to our district. All right, so now I see, and thank you, Board Member Larry Scott. Board Member Paulette Woods, you're up. Questions, concerns, comments?
Well, I looked at the package and I was impressed with the 92% and up graduation rate. I was very impressed with the minority faculties. I looked at the 46 students. I looked at, like Larry Scott did, at the students that were coming out, but only 13% of those were returned. 46 students is only like 10% of their population. And of that, 13%, which would be 5 or 6, were returned to the district. So I was real happy that they're not just putting everybody back in the district. Basically, what I saw in this presentation makes it was very impressive to me, and I did see that they have 90% African American students, and I saw that they had a very high percent of disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged students. What I didn't see was what was the number of L students, because unlike a lot of other charters where, you know, they don't take the disadvantage, they don't take the L's, they cherry pick. This school didn't seem to do that. I didn't see the number of L's you had. Could you tell me that?
We hover right around 3%. It's a tough nut to crack for us because we're trying to get inroads with community members, and we'll take all the L students we can. But unfortunately, I think based a little bit on location, we can't get past that kind of 3% mark, unfortunately.
And the special ed students, I see you had some, but I didn't see the specific number. You may have presented it, and I just was able to get in on this presentation. So, do you have a lot of special ed students? Do you know the number?
I do. If you just give me 1 second, I can tell you the percentage. 13%. And again, that's another number. Like our demographics kind of hover on that area where like 13 to 14% for students with disabilities.
Well, I'm just impressed that you're not cherry picking. You have good populations of most of the students in the area. You do have a diverse staff. I don't have any negative questions or negative comments other than to say, I'm glad for your high graduation rate and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Woods. I don't see any other board members here. Cindy, I'm gonna come back to you. Board Member McCutcheon, did you have any opportunity to review? And if so, do you have any questions or comments?
I do not have any questions. I was also similar to what Board Member Woods shared, excited to see the diverse faculty to meet the needs of the students that are attending the school. And I was really excited about that partnership with Home Beneath Your Feet. I think that is a really cool and very unique partnership that you guys have. Again, I missed a lot of it, so I was able to hear some through the questions my colleagues were offering, and I do appreciate, your responses back as a few of the numbers were explored a little bit more deeply. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think overall, the only other question I think I have is, how is your parent involvement at your school, Health Charter?
It's getting better. I'm gonna say, there are a lot of barriers to parent involvement, so we've tried to remove them where we can. Transportation for our community is very difficult. And so, we have about 15% that are relatively active, but we're hosting more and more community outreach events, evening events, and bring the parents in events to try to get them there. But particularly post-COVID, it's tough. Mr. Baxter?
Oh, yeah, it's not, yeah. Mr. Baxter?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a parent here, actually.
We do have a parent here, that we entered health science. As a matter of my son went to private school, and we chose to put him from private school and into health science.
Okay.
Definitely not because it was closer to home. And that was not the reason at all, because if I had to drive an hour so my child gets the correct and proper education, then that's what I would do. But it was more about just taking a look at the programming and what was best for him. And again, what certainly impressed me, and he's been in charter and private all his life from 3 years old. I think one of my first questions at the meeting was, hey, what's your percentage of minority teachers? So that was a big thing for me. And this is my last child. My first is 32 years old. So I'm not a new parent at this. I've sat on the board of the charter school as a parent, being active in that role. So the percentage of people that looked like him who was in staff, it was impressive to me. And Mr. Hexter would know. I looked at him silently, I'm like, are you sure you're telling me this? Why didn't come here? But it wasn't. And that's one of the things that really drove us there. Also, in the community itself, within health science, again, if something happens, usually the teacher or whatever, the principal will come through the radio to say, hey, X, Y, Z, this is what's going on, this is what's not going on. And then if you do even have a problem, even if it's out of school, internal within the family, but it's going to affect that child learning while they're there, these faculty members will reach out to you to say, hey, how can I help? How can I make this a better situation where this child can be home, where they can come to school, sit and learn? For me as a parent, I am quite happy with the program. Again, we left private school to go there. My son is now a junior this year. We went in as a sophomore. And it was just funny that the question that the gentleman there was asking about picking, and then you were trying to explain, well, sometimes we don't have what they need to graduate, just not about, here's a diploma. And we really didn't do anything to help that child to succeed after that point. It's something that we experienced in the sense of, I said to myself, and it was explained to us, hey, because he didn't take XYZ class in his sophomore year, unfortunately, to give him what he really needs to graduate, he will need to take 1 or 2 of these classes now, as a sophomore or as a junior. That was fine by me because it's telling me that they care about my child, not just having a diploma so their numbers could look better at graduation. So.
And thank you for that. Thank you so much to hear a parent, chime in on the good work that is going on at Health Sciences Charter School. And like I said at the beginning, in my own experience, I always thought that charter school, charter health sciences charter needs to bottle that up and give us some of that, because I think your graduation rates are phenomenal, with the population that you're serving. I think the collaborations that you have are great. You include some of the community, well, most of the community, and it helps young people to, see people who look like them. I mean, it's research sound. So we appreciate this robust renewal hearing, and there will be a grading system, if you will. And when board member Larry Scott talked about cherry picking, you'd be surprised at the number of charters in this area who do just that. They cherry pick. And they cherry pick in terms of special ed, they cherry pick with L students and so on. This school does not do that. It is not evidence, at least, that they don't do it, but a number of charter schools do it. And that's, being real. We hear a lot of hearings. We conduct a lot of these hearings, and they do. And guess what? They end up at our doors at a time when the BEDS reports are out, or when state assessments are out, and it's not fair to the system. But again, like I said, we cannot deny any student admission here in Buffalo. So with that said, Mr. Baxter and or Mr. Benning, if you have any last thoughts, words for the committee, you can do that now. And then we will
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to thank everybody, and I want to thank, the opportunity to grow together and make better place here in Buffalo. And we look to collaborate, and, anything we can do to help as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mr. Baxter?
Yes, I want to, been talking to Tanja, their superintendent since she's been appointed, the wonderful difference that we are experiencing as far as receiving services and working with the district. It appears that we're about serving kids, and I love it. So
that's it.
Also are joining the Buffalo League for Athletics, so we want to make the whole city of Buffalo proud, and we thank you for welcoming us in.
Okay, well, that's good. So anybody else? If not, this is going to.
I make one comment respectfully for my name is Andrew Davis. I'm the board chair, and wanted to say thank you for the collaboration, and also to our staff, Mr. Bynum and Baxter. And I've been involved with health science now for about a couple, 3 years, and it's very evident that they do care about educating kids, not just about the education, but welfare of all those children. And we're, from the board perspective, very pleased with our team, and we'll do everything to continue to support them in that endeavor.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that when we have such a dire need in the health professions, with COVID running rapid, I am really glad to see somebody focus on the health field. We need employees, graduates, and students to focus in that area. So thank you.
Amen. So with that, keep doing the great work that you're doing with our young people. It is a dire need, as board member would say, and not just in Buffalo, it's across this country. We need healthcare professionals that are going to take care of us one of these days as well. So thank you. Anybody else? If not, this concludes the hearing for the Health Sciences Charter School. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Board members, you can stay logged on, and we'll be starting our student achievement work session shortly.
Good. All right, good evening, everybody. We are going to begin our student achievement work session. And tonight I'm excited that we are going to get a comprehensive presentation on the Dignity for All Students Act, DASA, Incidents of Discrimination, Harassment, and/or Cyberbullying. In August, we unanimously passed a resolution requesting this presentation. And just to review, 4 of the things that we're expecting to hear tonight is the district process for training staff on DASA, the reporting and resolution process of harassment, bullying incidents under DASA within each school and with appropriate district departments and staff, the rate of harassment and bullying incidents under DASA district-wide and aggregated by school over the past 5 school years, and then lastly, the Dignity Act coordinator for the district and for each school, how we publicize who that individual is. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Superintendent Dr. Tanja Williams for her opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Vice President and Chair, Mr. Scott. We have a team with us this evening. We have Dr. Sharon Brown, who is our Chief of Student Support Services. We have Ms. Darlene Jesenowski, who is our Chief over the School Leadership Department. And we have with us our Assistant Superintendent from the Office of Shared Accountability that is sitting, I believe, with you in the boardroom, Mrs. Laura Samolsky-Peters. And, you know, we've done a lot regarding, you know, moving the work related to DASA forward. And so I'm excited for the presentation that you'll hear tonight from the team. I think you will be pleased with, you know, where we're headed as far as the 4 points that you mentioned were passed in the Resolution Act back in August. With that being said, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Sharon Brown to begin our presentation.
Dr. Williams, can I just add one more thing before we go further? When we complete this presentation and discussion on DASA, Dr. Williams is going to give an update on extended learning time. So I just want my board colleagues to be aware that we're going to need a few minutes after this work session to just get an update on the after-school programming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you and good evening, Superintendent Williams, honorable board members, colleagues, and listening audience. Thank you again for providing time in tonight's board work session for a presentation on Dignity for All Students Act. It's commonly referred to as DASA. And once again, presenting with me this evening is Darlene Jesenowski. She's the Chief of School Leadership, and Laura Samolsky-Peters, Assistant Superintendent and Data Protection Officer in the Office of Shared Accountability. Next slide, please. And as you already stated, Honorable Board Member Scott, during August 16th Board of Education meeting, the Honorable Board Member and Vice President of Student Achievement, Larry Scott, introduced this resolution on DASA and incidents of discrimination, harassment, and/or cyberbullying, which received board approval. And so tonight's presentation, just to recap, will address the resolution by discussing the district's process for training staff on DASA, the reporting and resolution process under DASA, the rate of harassment, bullying incidents under DASA, district-wide and aggregated by school, as well as identifying the DASA coordinators. Next slide, please. So we always begin our discussion and work with Dr. Williams' education bargain and 5x25 strategic goals. And it is certainly our priority to ensure that we are supporting every student in an equitable and inclusive manner with academic, social, emotional, mental, and physical health support. And considering that tonight's presentation is focused on DASA, the education bargain six pathways that you see at the sixth pathway that you see at the bottom of the screen that's circled in red. The pathway of services for our neediest children and families is absolutely critical. While we support all of our students, but we must look through the lens of equity, and our neediest students need additional support. And the third goal of the 5x25 of making safety, security, and wellness a priority is also important. While academics is certainly a priority, the social, emotional, mental, and physical well-being of all of our students and the entire school community must always stay at the forefront of our work, and it's equally important. Next slide, please. So I will just read this really quickly. So New York State's Dignity for All Students Act was established to protect all students from harassment, bullying, and discrimination. It became effective on July 1st, 2012, and was amended to include cyberbullying effective July 2018. Next slide, please. So overall, the goal of the Dignity Act for All Students is to provide all New York State public schools, and including, Buffalo Public Schools, all 66 of them, with all of our students, a safe and supportive environment that we strive for each and every day, that is free from any type of discrimination, intimidation, taunting, harassment, and or at a school function. Next slide, please. So what is bullying? It's important for us to define that so that we have a universal definition, and not only definition, but an understanding and what to look for. So bullying is unwanted, it's aggressive behavior that involves a real or a perceived power of imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. And I just want to stress again, while it's definitely a situation where it happens typically more than once, but we have to remember that there can be instances when it's the first time that it's occurring. And so bullying can also occur before and after school hours, in a school building, on a playground, on a school bus, while a student is traveling to or from school, or on the internet. And this is something that we have messaged a lot, and sometimes families about, how if there's a consequence that's applied, and sometimes they will say it didn't happen in school, but we really want to make sure our students are safe when they're traveling to and from school, and this act happen with your phone. Oh, we lost our PowerPoint. Okay, we're back. And so according to the United States Department of Education, the following are general characteristics of bullying, which is really a summation of what I just shared. It's an imbalance of power, it's the intent to cause harm, and there's repetition. And this is all reflected in our code of conduct as well as our policy. Next slide, please. Okay, and so no student should be subjected to bullying, harassment, or discrimination based on their actual or perceived, and you see all of the areas ranging from race, color, religious practice, gender identity, and all of the other areas that you see on the screen. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk a little bit about the training and the coordinators that are assigned to address DASA concerns.
Ms. Jezimowski, are you able to fill in?
I just wanted to make sure that Sharon wasn't on. I can discuss the training.
Okay, thank
So
you.
so DASA requires that schools provide instruction for all staff and students to really explicitly address bullying and cyberbullying and how to report incidents of bullying. So this summer we held a professional development for all our staff at the school level. And what we also did was we made sure that the principals turnkeyed that information on opening day to their entire staff. So it's a whole group discussion with faculty and staff, which focused on ensuring that a bully-free school environment existed in all our schools. We also have monthly principals meetings will include DASA topics and interventions. District social, emotional, and wellness support coaches are assigned to schools. They offer support and coaching for multi-tiered systems through the MTSS. A team of principals, counselors, district student support team members, cabinet and division head members will attend the Alberti Center for Bullying Abuse Conference, which is actually going to be held tomorrow. And we have approximately 10 to 15 principals going and the student support team going. Do you want to continue, Sharon? I'm at the.
No, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I apologize.
It's okay. So the building principal is a DASA coordinator at the school level. So every building, the building principal is the DASA coordinator. The district coordinator for DASA training and resources is Matthew Pegg, and he's a supervisor in the Office of Social, Emotional, Wellness Supports. And district coordinator for collecting DASA data and state reporting is Laura Samolsky-Peters, who you will hear from a little bit later. Did I leave anything out, Chief?
Yes, no, thank you for covering. Please let me know if.
I absolutely understand. If we can go to the next slide, please.
So in terms of building a bully-free culture, and I know that Chief Jezimowski just reviewed with you the training that took place, a lot of intensive training for all of the building level administrators and central office also participated in the training. And when they had an opportunity to meet with their entire faculty and staff, because there was time allotted for teachers to be able to participate in the course, the DASA course, they had an opportunity to talk about it afterwards. And part of this is discussing in more detail about building a bully-free culture. And just kind of going back to the coordinator role, because the principal is the DASA coordinator. However, they do have co-coordinators, and it's the assistant principal, and they can also delegate some of that responsibility to a team that can thoroughly investigate. And so when we talk about building a bully-free culture, while we know the principal is the coordinator, but it's important to remember that the reason why the coordinator was chosen as the principal is because they are the only suspending authority if it requires that, or to make a phone call for law enforcement. And we also wanted to make sure, because this is a priority for all of us, we want to make sure that these are situations that are investigated properly, followed through properly, and making sure that you create that team that can create that bully-free culture. And so responding to the signs of bullying by addressing reports immediately, and you'll hear more from Chief Jezimowski in terms of what that looks like, how you report it, but creating morning messages. You know, the schools have opportunities in the morning to have their morning messages and share that. I mean, this month, as we're focusing on Bullying Awareness Month, the Social Emotional Wellness Team under Director Mai Nguyen, and also Andrea Sanders, who oversees crisis prevention, they came up with a lot of prompts for the morning, and just talking to the students and the, I'm sorry, keep saying that my computer's gonna restart in 5 minutes. I don't know what's going on, I apologize. So excuse me if it kicks me out again. Discuss what it means to be an upstander. Discuss what it means to be an upstander. Faculty meetings, review and discuss positive adult and student interactions. All of the schools have bullying reporting boxes because we want to make sure that it's convenient for students to be able to have different opportunities to be able to report when there's a problem. We also created diverse and inclusive posters that are posted throughout the school in those common areas, just to keep it on the forefront of all of the students, faculty, and staff. And also restorative circles that happen in the morning. It's positive interactions with students, PBIS implementation, teaching social emotional learning strategies through Second Step. We also have a social emotional learning screener that we did a pilot last year. It really helps and teaches kids about regulating their emotions. Next slide, please. In DASA resources, we have here all of the resources, again, that came out of the Department of Social Emotional Wellness Supports. That's under the Division of Student Support Services. This is a one-stop shop for all of the schools. The DASA Coordinator Toolkit, you'll see under Office of School Climate, you'll see the areas referencing bullying. It's all of the resources right there. There are scripts that can help the school staff to be able to investigate the concern and to be able to really get to the root causes and offer supports. And so that is the link that we provide to all schools. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to turn this over to Chief Jezanowski.
Okay, thank you, Chief Brown. Good evening, honorable board members, Dr. Williams, colleagues, and listening audience. Harassment and bullying discrimination is very serious for us, and we really take any complaints very seriously at the school level. So we have a protocol that we have created to ensure that individuals have a way of reporting these incidents to us. So any school employee who witnesses or are told about harassment, bullying, or discrimination will notify the principal immediately, or at least one day, or within 1 day, and then file a written report no later than 2 school days of the reported incident. And there are a few ways that you can report it. The report can be filed using the BPS DASA incident reporting form or the bullying online reporting page, which is found right on the school's website. Principals also have access to the DASA incident reporting form, which is found in our document library in the Office of School Leadership. Reports can also be reported orally, and copies of the BPS DASA incident reporting forms are available to in all schools. The principal or designee then leads a very thorough investigation immediately upon receiving a report of any bullying via the instant investigation tool. Next slide, please. So what happens once you receive a report of bullying or harassment? Following the completion of the incident report, a prompt and thorough investigation is conducted to determine if the infraction is a material incident. What is a material incident? It's an act or series of acts by a student and or employee on school property or at a school function. An act that causes a hostile environment by conduct. Conduct is of such that is so severe in nature that it has the following effect: unreasonably and substantially interferes with the student's educational performance, opportunities, or benefits, mental, emotional, or physical well-being, or reasonably causes the student to fear for his or her physical safety. The reported bullying complaint and resolution are then recorded in Infinite Campus, and once it's determined to be founded or unfounded. Either way, it must be entered into Infinite Campus. The DASA coordinator also completes the harassment or bullying report form and identifies whether the complaint of harassment or bullying was founded. Based on that information, we have some outcomes of what can happen if an infraction is found to be true. Parent notification, restorative conference, in-school counseling and a referral to wraparound services, and then based on progressive discipline, does it result in a short-term or long-term suspension based on the code of conduct? Next, we'll have Assistant Laura Smalski-Peters share some data with you regarding DASA. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Chief Jezanowski. Good evening, honorable board members, Dr. Williams, and the listening audience. On the slide in front of you, you will see 5 years of bullying data that was reported to the state for the Buffalo School District. The state requires us to separate the categories into bullying and cyberbullying, and there's definitions for each of those. You can see that during the 2021 school year, 1920, 2021, that and 21-22 was kind of in that COVID time where the numbers took a little bit of a dip. But as we're coming back, the numbers are starting to regulate back to where they were pre-COVID. In addition, I sent out just a few minutes ago, the 5-year breakdown by school. So you should all have a copy of that in your email, and it will be in board docs. But you'll be able to see where each of these incidents that are reported on the screen, which schools those occurred in. And I just want to add that so the method that we were supposed to use to report these incidents changed starting with the 21-22 school year. I think that we've talked about VADAR reporting in the past. The state did away with VADAR reporting at the end of 2021 and renamed it as SSEC reporting. And within SSEC reporting, we include all of our DASA-founded DASA incidents, which is what you would see for 21-22 and 22-23. And I will turn it back over to Dr. Brown.
Thank you. And so just in summary, we want to always encourage reporting of all incidents. As you can see that this is a collaborative effort. It takes the support and partnership with the parents, again, the school community, district, and the community at large to really wrap our arms around our students and to support this. So we want to consistently encourage everyone to report it. I read something where, unfortunately, bullying is normalized. And so we want to do the opposite. We want to normalize a stand up, speak up culture. And we're continuously working diligently every day to create those cultures in our building and deepen that work in the building. Informing parents, caregivers of bullying signs to look for. Information, we send information out to parents, but we also want to make sure that we have trainings so that we can help parents to understand if your child is being bullied, what the signs are, or if you have a child who is bullying, what signs to look for, because we always want to help not only the victim, but the perpetrator as well, the student who is exhibiting the bullying characteristics. We also are going to continue to monitor our DASA data. You know, we have a rich platform, the data dashboard, that gives us a lot of information, and not only aggregate, but we can disaggregate it, look at the office discipline referrals, look at reports. So we want to continue to do that and continue to monitor the implementation of the code of conduct and offer supports at the building level. And also during principal meetings, we have monthly principal, assistant principal meetings. We had a couple this week and one today, and our team presented, and part of it was on DASA. Ongoing trainings in the following areas: restorative and trauma-informed care. Continue with extending training for mental health first aid, suicide prevention. I spoke earlier with faculty meetings. That's an opportunity for principals to be able to train their entire staff, and during grade level meetings, dedicating time out in a grade level meeting to review not only the DASA data, but also talk about interventions. And when we think about the resources that we have available, we're doing themes across the district this year, because there are other areas that we want to focus on as well. You know, health and wellness, physical wellness, because all of that can tie into something that could lead to a bullying situation. Suicide prevention is another area that we're going to provide additional training in. Also, school wellness teams will focus on DASA. This year, we're going to work deeper with our inter-high student council to receive student-level DASA training, because we know that student voice is so important to continue to elevate that student voice. Because again, students, they can tell us more than, you know, anyone. And to be able to know who those ambassadors are in the building, who can help them to stand up, help us all to stand up and speak up, to have that kind of culture. And so thank you so much for your time in this presentation. And now we are open to questions and feedback.
Thank you, everybody, for the presentation. I have some questions myself, but I'm going to let my board colleagues go first. And I'm going to go in alphabetical order by last name. President Belton Cotman, you have the floor. Comments, questions?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. Is there a procedure manual that directs principals on what they should do in regards to a DASA event? Is there guidelines that each principal in the district follows?
Yes, there are. They're found in our Office of School Leadership Handbook that all principals receive.
Okay, and so I was surprised that the number of incidents was as low as it was. Okay, so are these Act 24, is this actually just the people that filled out the DASA report? These
Laura,
are these regular bullying cases. Regular bullying cases are not reported, right?
They have, in order to be reported, they have to be founded. So through the investigation, if the allegation is founded, then it goes on this reporting sheet.
Okay, so in the procedures, do the procedures say what should be done for the children who have been bullied?
Well, that's part of our code of conduct. And again, I apologize for earlier. I didn't have my screen on. But part of this is in the code of conduct as well, in terms of support and resources that we offer to students who are actually experiencing cases of bullying. So that is outlined in the code of conduct.
Okay, but does it say in the procedural, manual that the principal should refer to the code of conduct?
Yes, we always tell principals refer to code of conduct when any allegation of bullying occurs or discrimination, that they use that as their resource and how they're going to make their decision on what's going to be the consequence for the student. And again, it's progressive discipline for the child, or the children.
And so finally, when Eric Rosser was doing this, there was I thought at one point, there was a DASA form that a parent could go and fill out that went straight to the district. Is that still available?
Yes, it is. It's on the district website.
Okay.
And can I add to that? It's on the district's website and is available copies in the main office as well. And they can report in other ways as well.
The main office at each school?
Well, it's available in the schools. They can print it out as well. So if a family says, I can't access this online, they can print it as well. We try to make it convenient for everyone.
And is it multilingual?
Yes, it is translated in the top languages.
Okay, good. All right, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, President Belton Cotman. Vice President Dr. Evans Brown.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I think parents should get these signs of bullying and suicide on a regular basis. Regular meaning at least once every month, once every other month, and I think it should include the DASA referral form. We're getting a lot of calls about this one thing. And so my questions are twofold. I was sitting here thinking, is the principal the right person to get this information? And I know you mentioned a coordinator at the school. I know that you mentioned that the bullying is investigated, and I'm questioning by who. It just seems to me that it should be a person designated other than the principal to take these kind of allegations. And then I said to myself, is there a relationship between attendance and bullying? Because as you know, we have a problem with attendance. And so there's a relationship there. Why do schools minimize suspected bullying? Because I'm like with board member, the President Cotman, these numbers are really low. So those are my questions. It's just concerning that they're low, and that should we designate somebody? Because somewhere I read that there should be a contact person, a DASA person at each school that does this thing, not the principal.
So I can answer a couple of your questions as far as the principal being the designee. And I'm sorry, that's when I lost connectivity. But we do advertise it. It's on our district website. There's a bullying tab on each school's individual page identifying the principal. And the reason behind that is because it's consistent with all of our procedures right now. For example, when there are office discipline referrals, it goes to the administrative team. Now, they don't have to be the ones who do the initial investigation. They obviously have to read it and determine who's the best person to investigate this. And one of the reasons is, for example, we know that there has to be a principal or acting principal in the building every single day. The student support team, we know, is comprised of a social worker, a school counselor, and a psychologist. There could be a training on that day where that team is not there or someone's absent. We know the consistency will be there for the administrator. Again, they don't have to be the person who is doing the actual work in terms of the investigation. They can assign it to a team. They know best in their school. What we're concerned about, especially with a large district, is if it's not on the radar of the principal, who is ultimately responsible for the entire building. We don't want anything to slip through the cracks where they didn't know that there was a problem. They didn't know that this was referred to one of their staff members. So that's one of the reasons why we do have the principal to be the designee, to be responsible to ensure that it's thoroughly investigated. And did I answer your questions?
It did, but I don't know if it's, this is just my opinion based on some of the conversations I've had about suspected bullying, is that it may not necessarily be, the greatest idea. So I don't know, we need to rethink it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Evans Brown. Board Member Hurd, any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple of questions, and I look at DACA. I know it's mandate the reporting of all incidents of harassment and bullying and discrimination that happen within the school. So this goes all the way from our pre-K programs all the way through high school. And I was just looking at the data, and the data doesn't reflect the number of incidents, that I personally have seen based upon that definition. So how is this data being reported to DACA, and how is the district looking at it and being perceived as? Because it says it mandates reporting for all incidents of harassment, bullying, and or discrimination.
So for the since they switched the reporting guidelines so for the 21-22 school year and 22-23 school year, we created a bullying, harassment, discrimination tag in Infinite Campus. So whenever an incident is considered bullying, harassment, or discrimination, it gets tagged that way in the system. And that's how we count the numbers at the end of the year when we report these numbers.
Okay, so the numbers that we see, if it's a physical altercation or anything like that, which we had more than 24 per last year, what happened to that other data? How did that not get reported, or how's that not being shown?
In the SSEC guidelines, there's a definition of what you can tag as bullying or what you report as bullying. So not all physical altercations meet the criteria for bullying.
I mean, we talk about bullying, and you also mentioned cyberbullying in your presentation. I mean, we had a lot more incidents of that, and you mentioned that the principals are the guardians of the DACA information. What other? This one I want to know how the information is being disseminated. Because what other, besides the principals and assistant principal, who else can make reference to a DACA report? Because I know that a parent can call DACA and report it themselves. So how is it only that the principals can report the DACA incidents?
No, we could just provide a little clarity. So there are three major ways that you can report bullying. So it can be through the online DASA reporting form. Also, copies can be made available in the school where they can use that same DASA online bullying form to report it that way. It could also be reported orally. It does not have to be reported to the principal. It can be reported to another adult in the building. And Chief Jezanowski, that was one of the slides that she reviewed where they have to document that and report it to the principal immediately in a written format. And then at that time, when the principal reads it, so they're aware of it, they can deploy an investigative team, which can be comprised of student support team members or other members that they want to. And also it depends on the relationship with the students. I think someone mentioned that earlier. Sometimes they may have someone else to talk to the child, whomever has the relationship. Our students have a lot of trusted adults that they really like to go to. And that is how it's reported. And so those are the ways that it can be reported. And once it's reported, it's investigated and determined if it's founded or unfounded.
Okay, what about with our coaches and teammates and I guess other teammates doing those type of physical activities, and it's quite prevalent with the competition between two people or between many people that you do incur this type of bullying. How's the coaches reflected in this data?
So I think we started with the principals and helping to make sure that they were all trained. And, the big thing is language matters, and so we did a lot of work this summer making sure that everybody knows what's the difference between a conflict and bullying, because there is a legal definition for bullying and what it is about the power that's perceived over the person that's being bullied and it happening, repeatedly. So, we've been doing a lot of work with that. The truth of the matter is most adults at one point in their lives have been bullied. And sometimes as adults, whether it's staff, principals, teachers, it's uncomfortable. And, we are trying to create a culture where it's not uncomfortable to report it. We can only report what the schools give us. But what we're trying to, get out to the schools is that we got to know so that we can get support. We can change that culture. There's nothing negative about reporting that, there are bullying issues that are happening within a school. That's how we get in and we support. But, we have to first define for them what it is so they know that every conflict is not necessarily bullying. Some things are two students that have, a conflict. But when bullying happens, I met with principals yesterday. And what I shared with principals yesterday is that by the time something comes to their attention, it's likely been repeated, and usually students have tried to resolve it, and usually staff have tried to resolve it. So what I said to principals, and Chief Jesenowski can attest to it, is that when they get reports of bullying happening, it is to become a priority. And I know they got to get in classrooms, and I know they got a million and other things going on, but things have to be put aside, and it's got to stop when it's a true bullying incident, so that it can be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Let me get to my point, and I'm gonna let you guys move on. But because of the DACA reporting, we can receive more funding from the federal government from incidents and the number of incidents that we have that occur here within the city of Buffalo. So, is that correct or not?
That's not correct.
That's not correct. So so government don't look at the incident reports from within a city or district and help send services. Because what I'm looking at, I'm concerned about the method of reporting incidents. That's related, because sometimes, like you just said, principals don't always get the information or always get the incident, when it happens. They don't always get to that level, and we understand that. So I just want to know, if there's other people within the building that can report it, or other people that can just give this type of notice other than our administrators. That's just only my concern. So I'm going to let you guys move on, but that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hurd. Board Member McEachen, any questions?
Yes, I do have a couple. On slide 9, you mentioned a series of things that I think we're going to be doing, and I guess I just want clarity on, have these things already been implemented, such as the morning messages, the reporting box, the posters? And if not, do we have kind of a timeline of when we think all of these things will be up and running?
Yes. So the posters, they have already been created. We disseminated them at the administrators retreat, and we went over it. Also, that's been a message for a while now about having a bullying box. So this year, we're really digging a lot deeper into all of what you all discussed about perception, about bullying, just to make sure that we're keeping it at the forefront of everyone's mind and that it's not dismissed. And I'm not saying that anyone is being dismissive at all. They're trying to address the needs of the kids. But yes, all of what I mentioned already has been in place, but we're digging deeper with it.
Okay, so there is like accountability, there's checks and balances to ensure that these things have then been put in place, because I know that it's kind of shifting, right? It's I think prioritizing, right, that this is super important, and that layer of accountability has to be placed in, especially because we're into the school year, right? Here we are, and we know that bullying and violence and things are happening. We're fully aware that that is very much a thing. And then I guess that leads into the next, piece of that particular slide is the mention of the morning restorative circles. So is this a district-wide thing? This is happening at all the schools. Everybody's been trained. We are seeing full, restorative approaches, because it's a fun word that in my industry, people throw around. However, you don't necessarily see it occur, right? At least not with consistency. And we know that for this to be effective and for it to work, we have to shift and we have to invest the time and energy into those spaces. So I guess my question is, who's leading these circles? Who's invited to these circles? What does it look like? Is it in homeroom classrooms? Is it, something that's done through that morning mess? Like what is the process for these morning circles, and how do we make sure that we are, providing this equitably across the district?
I'll take that question. You're going to go, Chief Justice?
No, go ahead, Chief.
Okay. So in terms of the restorative practices, we have provided training district-wide. It came out of the Department of Social and Emotional Wellness Supports. Also, we had a partner who worked with a couple of schools as well. And the expectation is that it will happen not necessarily in the morning. And this is something that we've been really talking about, and I've been about it because I know that we're all competing for time and it's just not enough hours or minutes in the day. But it doesn't have to be in the morning. It's creating that space and time, and even trying to include it with the academics so that you can have restorative type of questions, building that culture in the school building. Because I know I don't disconnect from my social emotional side when I go to work, and I can't be boxed into just in the morning between 8 and 8:15. Life doesn't work that way. So this is something as a district in our department that we have been messaging, that we have been providing training. In one of the slides you saw that we have 4 district coaches for the entire district. However, they are utilized to the fullest extent. We've had 1-200 Saturday trainings where schools are actually, they're sharing their stories and sharing how the restorative conferences and the morning messages and working together as a team is really helping. And now we're having students to begin to lead these practices. And I don't know if Chief Jezanowski has anything to add. So as far as what you're saying, we have actually witnessed it in schools. Do we need to get better with the consistency at our schools? Absolutely, we need to continuously provide the additional training and support to make that happen.
I agree with Chief Brown. Many schools do them in the morning, especially like during homeroom time. But then we have some schools that maybe do lunch for 20 minutes and then may do a restorative for 20 minutes as part of their lunch period. So every school, based on the needs and uniqueness of that school, is when they hold their restorative meetings or circle meetings at many of our schools.
I think that, and this is just personal opinion, and again, this is kind of a space that I have to spend a lot of my time in, or I do spend a lot of my time in. I just think we are missing the mark. I think we like to use the word a lot, but implementation looks different everywhere we go. And I hear that. You can't box it in. It's not the way this works, but there is a particular practice and way of doing this for it to be effective. And when a circle is run effectively, you see a different outcome, right? It shifts. And, until we have that critical, consistent piece and we are truly using that language and embedding it into our space, we're going to see, right, kind of this piecemealed, puzzled process that we're putting together that is, kind of sporadic or being implemented around. And so we use the word. I'm pretty confident I know the agency that, may be involved in some spaces. And I think there's opportunities certainly to do more, but that comes from us, right? Really, truly saying we are committed to this. Mm-hmm. We are going to figure out how to make this work, and we're not going to keep talking about it, but we're actually going to do it. The action piece has to occur.
No, and thank you for sharing that. Just one other piece to add, and I appreciate everything that you're saying. But we really follow the data, and the schools that we are seeing this happening across the entire school, we are seeing our numbers moving in the right direction. And we're seeing it across many of our schools, because sometimes when you look at the data in isolation, it can be very alarming. But when you see the previous year, we just looked at September, we saw a significant decline in suspensions and ODRs, and we're talking to the principals and visiting the schools, and we see some improvement. So we are seeing that the restorative practices are working, and they're providing testimonies that it is. So I appreciate, your comment, and I do see it happening more and more just from the data and the school visits that we're taking.
And it's also part of our walkthrough tool. It's one of the indicators that we look for when we go to a school visit. So the Associates of School Leadership are in schools pretty much every single day. And then we do strategic walkthroughs with our principals and going into classrooms. And it's part of our tool that we use. And it's an indicator that's part of that tool that we always focus in on with the principals through our discussions.
All right. Well, I look forward to watching everything shift and change because I hear everything you guys are saying. I don't necessarily have that data to look at, right, in that same way, and appreciate the way that you are, but I see the kids.
If I can just add one thing, I think that one of the evidences is that we all agree, I think, that after this pandemic, across our country, violence has escalated to levels that, are really frightening. And so at a time when things are escalating, we've seen a decrease in out-of-school suspensions. And the reality is that suspensions are probably a whole lot easier. I've been a principal than doing a restorative, whether it's a circle or a restorative conference where you're asking the 4 scripted questions and you're trying to get someone to take accountability for their harm that they've provided to someone. So I think one of the evidences we can point to is that at a time where things are escalating, our data as far as out-of-school suspensions is beginning to go in the right direction, which means something is shifting, something is happening, because it would be probably a lot easier and more time, a lot more, I don't know, to just say, you've got a letter and you're out of school for 5 days, than to sit and to go through the process. But that must be what's happening, because the data is showing that we're decreasing out of school suspensions, long-term and short-term. So that's just one piece, but we know we've got a lot of work to do. This is it's a huge shift. And we've been working with the agency that, that you've spoken about for years. It takes time, because it's not just a practice. It really has to become something that you really believe in. And that's why we always try to start with the principal, of the school. We've got to get our principals to buy in, and they have, because I think they see too that there's a real shift in recidivism when you go through this process, as opposed to, just suspending.
Thank you. That is very much appreciated.
Yep.
Well said, Dr. Williams.
Yep.
Thank you, Board Member McEachen. Board Member McCosey.
Chairman Scott. So I resonate with everything that's been said previous. I just want to add, I have a question, but I do want to add to the point that Board Member McEachen had brought up. Is it is very obvious that we are, using restorative practices where suspensions are concerned in a reactionary level. It is very obvious that we are looking to implement this in all the schools. And something that I've kind of been trying to hit home since I think day one on this board is the autonomy that each school has and what the district is responsible for. So when we talk about restorative practices and how we implement them, right, knowing that this is a concern, knowing that it's a new day, knowing that we're trying to change things, how can we make sure that our SBMT teams are at least able to give the data of, okay, during morning time, this is what our school does. During, our teachers have the autonomy to utilize these practices during their education time, which with the teachers that I've spoke to feel as though they would love to implement some more, restorative direction, I guess, when it comes to curriculum, but they just do not have the time in the space or with the curriculum. So I'm curious to know if this is where I believe 100% we're heading in this direction. This is not a downplay. This is me wondering, how do we make sure that the district is accountable and we're not just relying on, we know this is happening really great in some schools and we're hoping that with the trainings that we do, that it ends up being just as great in other schools? Are we doing best practices amongst schools that are doing great within that grade level, some elementary schools that are having fantastic results where restorative practices are concerned? Are they meeting with other principals and having that one-to-one of how maybe they can help? And I guess in my outside world, in my consulting, this is where I'm looking for that kind of more of an accountability factor of, I understand everyone gets the training, but I also understand the implementation is hard. And we as a district, including us as board members, are accountable to the bullying that's happening in the schools, right? And we're accountable to the practices because we say we're doing them. So I'm just putting that out there. I'm not expecting answers now, but it's definitely a concern of my own on a personal and, board member level. And my question is, when it comes to students who have been bullied for quite some time and it wasn't made aware, or transition happens in the building, and, you know, we're talking years, because this is more frequent than we like to admit, that student might just, you know, the supports for that student who has been bullied and the students who have been bullying, because again, in my own personal experience, the students bullying were dealing with issues as well, but it was over a 6-year period of time. So where I get that, where, you know, if you see it, say something, it's almost like we're looking at when it happens right then and there. What are the supports available when it's an extreme case, when we might have a child who has been going through it for an awful long time and is now contemplating suicide? Obviously, it's more personal than you think. Or threatening the other students. That child becomes the target of the issue instead of being looked at as the one who is bullied. So I don't see those supports in the code of conduct. What do we do, and how do we make sure, and this is for the audience, because I will say that Best Self stepped in, our Best Self providers in the schools. I need for people in the audience to hear that this is real, we see it, and we do have supports. It isn't just check the website. We do have supports to help if it wasn't tracked, or if transition happens in the building and the student doesn't want to speak up, or, you know, they're in an IEP class and everybody in their class follows each other for 6 years straight, and that, you know what I mean? Like, this is real. So sorry for getting emotional, but I know it for a fact, and I know too many families who deal with this, who just, they don't have, you can go to the website all day, but it's not going to help that here and now, where that child is like, I can't take it anymore. We had a suicide last year. I need to know, and I need for the, I know personally, but I need for the listening audience to hear what we do in these situations, when it comes to these situations, because they're more frequent than we would all like to admit. Again, I apologize for getting emotional, but it's real.
No need to apologize, Board Member Makosi. Thank you for sharing. Any staff want to respond, or
Yeah, I can respond, and thank you for sharing that. So when we talk about the website, I mean, that's certainly information for the public to know, you know, our resources that we have and who to contact in the building. But we know the relationships, it starts at the building level. It starts with the teachers and the adults in the building. And, you know, I mentioned earlier, we do have school counselors, psychologists, social workers in the building, but it's really who that student connects with. They may connect with the person that works in the cafeteria, the engineer, and that is why creating the culture in the building that kids feel comfortable in sharing what they're going through, because sometimes they won't share. And sometimes they'll go home and share with their parents. And that's why we're asking parents, if your children come home, they don't want to talk, you see the look fors, and you see you have those signs, please call the school immediately. You can call the school counselor, you can call the principal, the assistant principal, the teacher, and they can connect you with the resources that they have in the building. We have Best Self, we have other mental health agencies located right in the building. We also have a crisis prevention team that is a district team, and there's a member assigned to each and every school that can conduct lethality assessments, where if a student is threatening to harm him or herself, or a threat assessment where they're threatening to harm others. There is support for that student support team who can work with the child. And just really, that's why the student voice is so important. And I said we want to dig deeper with our inter-high student council. Those are the representatives at the high school level, and really expand it to the elementary levels, because helping students, because they will talk to each other, so that student can go to an adult and say, listen, I know Johnny this is what happened to him and he needs some help and he's afraid to say something. So we just have to continue to work together, and we really want parents to come and tell us if they're seeing something at home, students to say something, teachers to say something, and the supports are right there in the building. I was a building principal for many years, and when we would have meetings and faculty meetings and grade level meetings, and sometimes we would talk about certain things that were happening outside of the building, which is important. We definitely want to support for that too, but what are we doing with the students when they're with us during the day, and making sure that we have those environments, which we are, and the schools are constantly reaching out for additional support to make sure that we're supporting the students in the building.
And that's why we developed the toolkit, the DASA toolkit for our principals, so they had a wealth of resources they could tap into if they needed them, besides just being at the school level. So if you look at slide 10, every principal received that information, so they have access to those various tools at the school level to support families and support the students.
Thank you. I just needed the public to hear all the resources just within each building. And I am kind of serious about making sure that we use best practices and utilize everyone's great work to make sure, especially our transitioning principals have some help with this restorative direction we're going in. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Board Member Makosi. Next, we have Board Member Rivera.
Thank you very much. First of all, I just want to echo Board Member Makosi. Thank you very much for sharing that. It was really, really powerful and important for people to hear. And I think it speaks directly to my 3 items. And my first one is just pointing and highlighting to the fact that all of the board members' comments have pointed to how do we identify this early? How do we get in there early before these things erupt? There are pieces, there's reporting and there's a variety of other things that can be put into place once the reporting happens. But the question is, how do we get there early? And part of what Board Member Makosi is talking about in this particular instance is it wasn't until it escalated that it was found. Once it was found, interventions were put into place. But I think a lot of what we're struggling to understand and to think through is what kind of early warning is there. So Dr. Brown, you mentioned parents and what to look for. That's definitely a piece of it. This leads right into my question, though, is to what extent is this made a priority for principals and teachers, especially in terms of supervision, in terms of how they're evaluated? In other words, is this high up in the list of things that they should be watching for? Because I can also tell you, not only as a parent of a child who was also bullied, but also as a classroom teacher, you hear and see things that may not quite look right, but they're not maybe at the level of being actionable. And Dr. Brown, you talked about that, right? With a parent, their student comes in, yes. They're not talkative, a lot's happening. Yes. You can do this when you're a teacher as well. And 9 times out of 10, if you listen in the hallways, you're going to hear some of these early signs. Mm-hmm. So to what extent are we helping support teachers with some of those early signs that may not be actionable yet, but are a sign that something might be happening? And how are we making this a priority when we supervise principals and teachers?
Absolutely. I'll speak from the training perspective. President Oski, if you want to talk about the observation and evaluation piece. But
Excuse me. I'm sorry, Dr. Brown. Could everybody mute that's not speaking, because we're getting a lot of feedback?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So in terms of the look-fors that I talked about, we really want to make sure that parents are understanding what those signs are and sharing that with the faculty and staff. Part of the training course talks about that.
Could everybody mute that's not speaking because we're getting a lot of feedback.
Okay. And the staff, they've been trained in that as well as part of the DASA course that they took. In terms of looking for those signs, in terms of being active as far as supervision and the things that you do and the things that you say and don't say, like it's not appropriate to say, we don't tattle, to really ask what's going on. I see that you're upset. Those are some of those early indicators that we're looking to make sure that every single adult understands that when a child is withdrawn or they're telling you that someone's bothering them, to make sure that you really address it. And having that homeschool connection for parents to be able to come into the school or call you to say, you know, I'm noticing my child just doesn't want to go to school every day. He or she doesn't want to talk to me about it. For us to be able to connect with you. That's why the mental health support, sometimes it needs, you know, mental health support, because once we start talking to the families, we begin to learn more. That's why that social emotional learning screener that we have and that we're looking to expand can really give us a lot of good information as far as warning indicators. We partner with Chief Botticelli's department with special education to be able to have that. And what's nice about it is it doesn't just only show you areas where a student is struggling, but it also shows you strengths. Because a lot of times we think about the deficits, but we want to really also build on the strengths, because that really helps children to want to go to school, stay in school, to really find out what those interests are. So as far as the early warning, it's the training that I talked about with the trauma-informed care, the suicide prevention, the mental health first aid is absolutely critical. Training students in a student level way to be able to support this work as student ambassadors, to be extra individuals in the building, to have look-fors and to stand up for one another in a positive way, not to engage in anything that's going to cause harm to them, but to continuously put this message out in the support.
And at the building level, Dr. Rivera, it's very important for principals. It starts from the minute the child gets off the bus. Our adults out there because you build those relationships with children, you can see when there's a difference in their attitude, their behavior, that somebody talks to that student from the minute they walk into your building to the minute they go to the classroom. And when teachers really talk to their students and they build those relationships and adults in the building, they know when a child maybe isn't feeling right or something isn't okay, that they can go to a counselor to speak to them. We have social workers in our building, school psychologists. So there are many ways that children can use the bullying box if they want, put something in there, that they need to speak to somebody. We have groups in buildings where school counselors meet with students, groups of students, to work with them on many different concerns. So I think really starting from the relationship piece and really being aware and being out in those hallways in the morning and talking to your students. You can really tell when a student is not having a good day, when something isn't right. And then when you build those relationships, children are going to tell you when things aren't right a lot of times. And we do PBIS also, positive behavioral interventions with our students. So we start on a positive note. These are things we're doing to be preemptive instead of reactive to things. So students know these are the behaviors we're expecting in our building. This is how we behave in our building. So you start really from the positive before we get it really bullying starts.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing this unfold some more and some more of those assessments of how it's working as we move forward come out.
Thank you, Board Member Rivera. And last, Board Member Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, like the rest of the board members, am awestruck in disbelief of the numbers that I printed out for your report of of bullying. I have 19 schools. I immediately looked for Hutch Tech. Hutch Tech. The children emailed me, the parents emailed me, 6 young ladies sexually being harassed, cyberbullying. Reported it, did not feel comfortable telling social worker, any of the teachers or any of the team. Now, that's an atmosphere you said we want to change. I understand that. But I'm looking at your report and I don't see any incidences in 21, 22 for under Hutch Tech. That concerns me. I know of 10. Your numbers, again, I'm working with a parent. I'm working with 3 parents right now. I'm looking at Herman Belladille. The parent reported to the principal, AP, teacher, child slapped, bullied, harassed, ongoing. I'm working on this right now. I don't see a report. The parent doesn't know anything about a DASA form, which is why I'm very thankful we're having this workshop, because I want to be able to give that form to these parents, because the parents know that the board members are here for the students and the parents. Now, I don't know how you got 24 in all these schools, and I can give you 30 just in the last year. And I'm just sitting here, amazed. I heard what you said about if the parent talked to the principal and the principal investigates, then there is no DASA form filed. That doesn't make it to this reporting form I'm looking at. I'm trying to, what I'm saying as politely as I can. I've got suicide at City Honors, and I see nothing for 21, 22, nothing. I mean, I sat there and listened to a parent cry. Her son hung herself, and I cried with her. I don't understand what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Bennett Park Montessori. That's another one of my schools.
You're muted, Board Member Woods.
Board Member Woods, you're muted.
Okay, I said Bennett Montessori. I see on this form it says 3. I have 7 cases. 7. The parents are talking to me, and I'm sending it back through the chain, and yet I'm looking here and I don't see these numbers that I'm dealing with. Your part-time board member, I don't see them reflected here. So I don't understand, where's this disconnect? Is it that the principal just decides and says, I'm not going to report it? The system is not accurate. These numbers are not accurate. And it's a concern for me, a very serious concern, because this is very serious. The children do get depressed. We
agree. I don't think there's any argument.
These numbers are not accurate.
The data is telling a story. These are the numbers that have been reported. Resolution and ask that we bring forward what's in the system. This is what's in the system, and it is telling us a story that we've got work to do to help our schools to know, what bullying is, how to report it, making sure our parents know how to report it, and that there is no, retaliation or anything that's negative about reporting it. We're changing that culture. We're changing the culture, but what the board asked us to do was to bring forward what's been reported in schools, and that's exactly what we have at this point.
Well, Madam Superintendent, I know you're always trying to improve things. I have tremendous respect for all the work that you do, honestly. But what I'm saying to you point blank is that if the law mandates reporting of harassment, bullying, and discrimination, and that's what the law says we're supposed to do, my parents that are calling me at 19 schools are saying they don't know how to do a DASA form. They are moving with their feet. I've got 6 or 7 just saying, for my child's mental health, I have to move them. The teacher is doing the bullying. And I'm putting it up the chart, but I don't see this information accurately reflected on here. And I'd like to get an understanding of, is the difference that because the principal is the person who can decide whether this is an actual bullying case so it doesn't get reported, it doesn't make it into these numbers? What I don't understand. Please, somebody explain to me how you can come up with 24 and I've got 30.
You know,
and I don't have all the schools either.
Right. I haven't investigated each of those cases, but it could be that some of those cases that you're hearing about don't rise to the principal. I don't know. It could be a case where, you know, someone feels more comfortable sharing something with you than a child going to an SST team member. I think what Laura Samolsky-Peters shared is that those are the ones that were reported to the principal and that were deemed as valid bullying cases. But, you know, again, I'll share, we know we got a lot of work to do around, I think all districts do. We got a lot of work to do.
I have a mean girl syndrome going on at one of my schools. I've got 7 parents upset about it. And if you're telling me, I'm just looking at the schools now, come on. I love my schools, but Buffalo Performing Arts, 0. We need to talk. That's all I'm going to say. We need to talk because the bullying and the mean girls and the children crying and the suicidal ideations. I need to know that, one, that the parents can report it, it can get in these numbers, and something can be done, and they need to know what can be done other than moving with their feet and crying to the board member. So this is a big problem for me.
I think we have to keep talking. We've got to keep talking about it, you know, until we normalize that it is okay to bust up bullying. You know, when they see it, say something, and that we are going to react. And that's why I felt it was important that it come from me as the superintendent, that this is a priority. So I shared that with principals. They don't have to worry about their numbers spiking. You know, we're trying to save lives. So they heard from me that it is a priority. You've heard that they're going to some trainings tomorrow. I think the more we keep talking about it, training, normalizing, looking at our data, monitoring, you know, we're going to keep getting better and better at reporting it and addressing it. That's what we really want.
Dr. Williams, can I also just let everybody know that early this summer, Chief Chrzanowski, Chief Brown, Chief Bullock, and I developed a different way to calculate reporting for this school year so that we can see not just founded incidents, but incidents that were reported to the school. And so the new method we developed allows for us to monitor regularly how many reports are coming in, and we have met a couple of times already to cross-reference those, what's being reported at the school level and what's coming through the DASA online reporting form. And then Chief Chrzanowski has the other associates following up with schools when we see something come through and we don't see it reported in our new portal. So I think that as our school year goes on this year, we will start to see numbers that are more accurate and represent what we're hearing is going on in the schools.
Board Member Woods, anything else? Are you concluded?
Madam Superintendent, I really do need to give some feedback it's across the board in so many of my schools, and it is really an overload for the board to be the person that's got to intervene in this. There's got to be a better way.
Thank you, Board Member Woods. Board Member Hurd, I see you have your hand up. You already had the floor. Go ahead real quick because I have some last questions and comments as well. You're muted, Mr. Hurd.
Thank you, Chairman. My last question is, I'm just looking, I looked at our last chart that we had from the CDC, our youth risk behaviors survey, and it has a lot more details than what's being presented today, as far as the numbers. And maybe we should, look at those numbers also and those children, or maybe do our own surveys within the district to get a better assessment of where we're at and where we're going as a district. Our children, as Jennifer said, are special, and we got to treat every child, in that manner, because bullying exists, and it's more, it's more in existence now than ever. And I just wanted to just make sure that we go on the right path moving forward, as far as clarifying these incidents and getting these incidents reported, because the numbers that we received today are far off, from what we were seeing as board members. And I just think bullying hurts everyone, and we got to come up with a better means of reporting and using more staff members, or even having an app, because I looked on the website, and it really should be a button on the website when you go on for bullying, so parents can report it. I know you shouldn't have to search through the web page, if it's about your child, because we receive these phone calls, these emails, these text messages all the time about incidents with children. We got over 30,000 kids in our district, and it's going to happen. It's just how we address it is what makes this prevalent. Thank you.
So, Board Member Hurd, if I could just respond, I think you make a good point that youth risk behavior survey shows something that's quite different than in the data that we're seeing today. And I think Dr. Williams and her staff have owned that these numbers are not an accurate reflection. And I think that's one thing that Dr. Williams, that's a strength of hers since she's come on as superintendent. She's transparent, she's honest, and I think there are things that are already starting to change so that these numbers are more accurate as we move forward into this school year further, and then on to future school years. So thank you, Mr. Hurd. I think my premise for really wanting to have this discussion, it's not about any individuals or departments. It's us as a system being sure that there's oversight and we're being most responsive, best responsive to the most significant cases of harassment and bullying. Because I think it was a few of those that were very significant that, to me, didn't get addressed immediately and effectively. I feel that with my own kids in Buffalo Public Schools, there is a lot of support that's happening from community-based agencies, mental health staff, restorative practices. Is it everywhere? Is it done with fidelity, complete fidelity? No, but I think there's more than just words on paper that are occurring with those supports in our schools. I share the concern with principals being the DASA coordinator. I've mentioned this previous years. I'm not, as a sole board member, in a position to dictate changing that, but I think it's something that we should seriously look at in the future as to whether that's best practice and what other districts are doing, because a lot of times it's mental health professionals that are serving in those roles, and I just think it provides a natural checks and balances. It's not that the administrator doesn't then get involved in an incident of harassment, but it might be a little bit more of an efficient, reliable system if we have somebody that's a little bit more neutral that people are going to report those incidents, and then the administrator is brought in to investigate and manage that incident. I think Assistant Superintendent Smolsky-Peters just addressed my other question. With suspensions, there seems to be some communication with student support services and some oversight from the district. And it seems like now we are setting up a system for these DASA referrals where they're not just sitting in buildings, that the district is taking a look at them and they're aware of them, maybe calling back to schools and saying, hey, did you do this? Did you look into that? So that's changing. I think that question has been addressed. While everybody was asking questions, I went on the district website. It makes it clear that principals are the DASA coordinator. What I couldn't find was our district DASA coordinator, who's Matthew Pegg. I believe that person needs to be very clearly named or identified on the district website, so that if some folks, parents, aren't happy at a school level, they kind of know who that person is on a district level for some oversight and some response to their concerns. I did go, though, on the school websites, and there is a bullying tab on there now, and it clearly states who the DASA coordinator is, as the building principal says their name, and then there's like a link to filing a report, an incident, a DASA incident. So that is a huge improvement. What I would suggest is that we have that tab right on our district website, something similar that's for just the district website. Our website has made drastic improvements. I think it's hard, though, if you go on that district website to then find, oh, where is the information on DASA, harassment, bullying? It is on there way at the bottom in small print, but I think it should be a tab just like we have on each of our school websites to click on, and then bam, you can go in and understand what DASA is, harassment, intimidation, and make a referral. I'm also wondering if we should do a Connect Ed call to make our parents, guardians, caregivers fully aware of the ways that they can report any type of incident of harassment and bullying. Chief Jesenowski, I think you identified that there's 3 major ways, maybe it was Chief Brown: the online DASA form, copies in the school of the form, and then obviously a trusted adult that a student can go to or a parent can go to in the buildings. And just, I think it would be helpful. I know people get tired of those Connect Ed calls, but I think this is something that is worthy of getting information out. As a system, I think for us to be most responsive, best responsive, awareness and understanding is absolutely critical when it comes to harassment and bullying. Dr. Williams, you said it earlier that adults get harassed. It happens all the time. And we know that's happening in our schools. And we know it's far more than what these numbers are showing. And I don't think it's a bad thing, like you said, Dr. Williams, for us to see numbers that are higher, because it shows that we do have a system that's working, that it's being reported, and that it's being addressed at a school level and a district level. So I guess I don't really have any questions because they have been answered. I just had some commentary there to share. And I'm thankful to Chief Brown, Chief Jesenowski, and Assistant Superintendent Smolsky-Peters for putting this together, to my board colleagues too for supporting this resolution and having this important discussion. Dr. Williams, any last questions?
Can I say something before you conclude, please?
Sure.
Can I say something? So from what I'm hearing, the board is very concerned about this report. I am glad to hear, because my suggestion was to make sure that there is some sort of a report that's generated. But I also think that we're missing a piece, and I agree with you, Chair, that there's a problem when the school administrator is overseeing the process. And I think that that the board should have at least quarterly a report that tells us how much, what type of bullying is going on within our school district. I think we need to come up with about 4 reports that we currently don't necessarily have before us, but this should be one of them. My concern is what happens when the principal is the bullier, is bullying the kids. What happens then? Okay, where's the system that's in place to make sure that the adults in the equation are held accountable also? What happens when the principal is the one who the report is written up on? How do you dare allow someone to oversee their own report? Okay, and so I think we have some work to do in that area. I'd like to see it worked a little bit more clear, and I'd also like to think that the state has a problem as well, that they did not challenge a large school district this size, and that's the type of numbers that were being reported. I'm very concerned about that because what is the state doing to make sure bullying is not happening in the districts too?
President Kottman, this is Laura. I agree with what you just said. So I dug deeper into numbers of some of the other large districts. I didn't look at New York City, but I looked at Rochester, Syracuse, and Yonkers. They're right where we are. They're reporting in the same range as what we are. So.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure no one wants to self-report. It's like the suspensions. You're sending kids home under 3 days so that you don't get a long-term suspension. It doesn't matter that the kid has been sent home 3 times, which equals a 9-day suspension, but he's been sent home 3 times, which falls under the short. I do think that we have a problem when we're not allowing a double take. So my question is, I have one question that came out of this as I was sitting here thinking. We have a team that is put together to deal with emergencies when we have traumatic events in our district. How is bullying not a traumatic event, and how does that not tie into that team? I'm just curious. Do they just exist for when there's a traumatic event in the district, or are they there full time? What are they doing when they're not working traumatic events? I'm just trying to, I know they go out into the schools sometimes, but I'm just trying to figure out how is bullying not a traumatic event and does not require a second look. And the board has the authority. If you want, we can change the policy. So we don't have to feel as if we can't do anything, but I'm just curious to know how the sheriff is patrolling his own schools. I just don't understand how the sheriff is putting together his own report. I don't understand that.
So, President, sorry, Dr. Brown, can I just say quickly, with respect to the principal being the coordinator, and if the principal were the bullier, the principal is not the only person. If the report is made through the website, the principal is not the only person who receives that report. It also goes to myself and one other person at the district level, and then it is shared with the associate superintendents of school leadership. So they are not the only one aware that complaint was made against the principal.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Does Joe Argo, is he still around?
Yes, he's the other person that I referenced, yes.
Does he ever fill out a bullying report from the district website? From the calls that he gets, do he ever fill out one?
It's the parent who fills out the report.
He would have to have been harassed to fill one out.
No. Understand what I'm saying, okay? We have someone who is designated. You know where I'm going with this, Laura. I see you shaking your head. We have someone whose job is to do customer service or to take calls from parents that are upset. How is it that we don't have a mechanism that he's also putting in a report?
I believe he advises them to
I'm not asking you to come up with that, but I'm just saying we need to look at that. We need to look at that. Why do we have him there if he's not being used to help us gather the right data?
So he's there to make sure there's an additional person to make sure the principal receive the report. And also it will be kind of considered secondhand because usually parents are calling on behalf of what their student says. So there's some guidelines around that. But I do understand what you're saying, but that's one of the reasons.
It's a referral.
Right.
It is a referral.
There's a referral
If he received a bullying complaint, it has to be a referral. And who would it be referred to? Go to the district's website, I would think. And when you say district website, every DASA report tracks to the district website, right?
If they fill it out using a school link or the district link, yes, it goes through the same channel. So each school has the button that Vice President Scott referenced, but there's also a district one. But all of those, if somebody fills out a complaint using either of those mechanisms, they are routed through the same place. They come to me, they go to Joe Agro, and then the associates receive them.
Okay, and so when you route those to you, do you define what type of bullying it is so that you can tell what type of bullying? Was it harassment? Was it sexual? Was it racial? So we don't have that in place. So we're not even able to pull that information out either. Okay, I think Board Member Scott, as Vice President, and I think you've opened up a can of worms that I think we might need to add some additional layers in to make sure it's done right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, President Bellencamp. Board Member Woods, real quick so we can wrap this up because we have one other thing to address.
Yeah, real quick. Can the definition of harassment and bullying, the mandated reporting, can somebody send me that? Because my real quick question is, I'm looking at Herman Belladillo, I'm looking at 21, 22, and I see a 0. And I'm just kind of wondering, does the definition exclude that young lady who got beat up on the bus and the whole councilman and everybody? We had to have a series of meetings because she was badly hurt. And I see a 0. I see nothing there. And then McKinley, we had at least 2 or 3 people hurt, and I see only one thing for McKinley, and I know there's others. So I'm just trying to understand, what is the definition that child who got hurt so badly on the bus at Herman Belladillo isn't in there? There's a Zippo, and the same thing with Hutchsec. There's just too many things that I guess don't fall in the definition. Can somebody send me the definition? Because I would think some of these things should have been counted.
All right, thank you, Board Member Woods. Dr. Williams, if you want to close this work session out and then transition to your update on ELT.
Sure. Thank everybody for a rigorous conversation, and I think some good recommendations and some good things for us to follow up on. I think it's good that we're having it and timely at the start of the year. I want the team to still feel encouraged because, we're reporting data, from previous years, 2 of which were COVID years. And I'm hearing that, the other big 5 areas are also experiencing similar data. Not that that's an excuse, but, sometimes when you're where we are with the reporting, you only get better, and we will continue to get better. So thank you all for, the discussion. I could hear, how serious and, how important this is to all of us. So thank you for that. I was asked if I would just share a few words, an update, as far as where we are on ELT. So it's not a formal presentation. I don't have a PowerPoint or anything, but I do just want to share some points with you on where we are with our extended learning time program, because there's been lots of discussion in schools and amongst our parents. We're scheduled to begin in about 2 weeks on Monday, October 23rd. And as you know, I do believe in transparency. So what I'm going to share is where we are and, how we will be addressing some of the issues that we are experiencing, because we do have an issue that we're experiencing. I want to start by sharing where we are. We are able to offer after-school programming. However, some of the programs will have limited seating availability, and that's based on the number of staff that have currently indicated that they are able to work. We're continuing to recruit. All of our elementary schools can begin, although it will be with limited seating, and it might not necessarily be 5 days a week. Fridays are tough. It's tough for staff to stay. We've got, 3-tier schools. So it would be a late night on Fridays. So that's one of the things. As far as our high schools, they're usually focused more on credit recovery. And so we're not in the same boat with our high schools that we are, because there's alternative staffing solutions that we're working on there. But the elementary schools, there is an issue with staffing. But it's not just an issue for BPS staffing. Our community-based partners are also experiencing issues with staffing. So some of our CBOs are not able to provide adequate staffing to work the programs either. So transportation right now is set up for the students who have been registered thus far. Chief Botticelli and her team have put together a diverse group of stakeholders. I hear all the time from our parents that they want to be a part of the solution. And so we have a committee that has been convened. We are including our parents. We have school administrators. We have teachers. We need to hear and understand what some of their issues are, but we all got to come together and brainstorm and see how we can make sure that we get as many folks working as possible so that our young people can come to the programs as they deserve to. We have worked with HR. We have district-wide postings that are out right now. Initially, we started with looking for teachers and teacher assistants. We're now looking also for teacher aides, if they are interested in working. We're looking at being flexible as far as maybe we don't have the program 5 days a week. Maybe the program will have to be 4 days a week. And on that 5th day, the CBOs or the ELT teachers are sending something home for children to do that's meaningful during that time. We talked about, we know that, kids are out of school during Christmas break, winter break, spring break. Maybe those are times where we have CBOs that, operate out of the YMCA or wherever they are, where children can go there and make up hours, because when we receive funds from the state, there's a certain number of hours that we have to meet in order for them to keep getting those funds. So we're looking at almost everything. What I really want to convey, though, is that, the transportation is not necessarily the reason that we're limiting students right now. It's a staffing issue. And we're trying to encourage staff to come. We can't mandate. We can't make staff work. We can't. So we are trying to encourage staff. We're looking at central office staff. If they want to go out into buildings and do some work, then we're looking at, nothing is off the table right now. So I just wanted to give an update that we will be starting the program. We're looking at targeting our most needy students so that they are assured that they're able to participate in the program. And we're going to see, our first meeting is next Tuesday with this committee of stakeholders. I've shared with the chief and the person that oversees ELT that, I'm looking for quick resolutions on this, because we're scheduled to begin the program in a few weeks. So, we don't have months to meet and talk about it, but there is an issue with staffing and the ELT program. So if there are any questions or comments, or if you have ideas, nothing is off the table at this point, but it's really a staffing issue on why we're looking at right now limiting the number of students and looking at flexible scheduling as far as maybe 4 days a week instead of 5.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Yeah. Since I think I'm still chairing, any questions? President Belton-Cottman.
Mr. Hurd's hand went up. You want to go down the, you're going down alphabetically?
Or whoever has questions.
Oh, okay. I do have a question. I will take the liberty to say this. So this isn't new for the extended learning program. This is not new that we have not had staff to and to meet the needs of the children. However, what's interesting is that it appears that it's worse this year than ever, is the feedback I'm getting. So I want to know, have you looked into hiring substitute teachers to do the work during after school? Okay. Have we looked into expanding our relationships with community organizations? Okay, because for the first time, money has been earmarked in a big way to try to get learning, and we're not able to do it. We're not able to pull it off. And finally, my other question is there anything in the new contract that will allow an MOU for us to provide the needed services for children when teachers are not available to supply us, to support us? I need that question answered, because it doesn't seem fair that we cannot use other people if we can't meet the needs with our teaching staff. And I need that to be clear. Okay, thank you. Sorry I took the liberty, but I did. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Board Member Hurd?
I was reflecting the same thing that that the board president said about reaching out to our teacher assistants and also our substitute teachers to possibly fill those needs. I know that a lot of them work 2 or 3 different jobs, and this could be some way they can cure their income and also continue to work with our kids. And also maybe bus aides. You know, we got a number of bus aides that's in the district that wants to you know, get certified in teaching, and this can be one of the means they can help and follow up, you know, making those decisions. So my last question would be, how many students applied? Do you have a roundabout? And how many teachers do we have to fill those seats right now?
I don't have that tonight, but I can get that information for you and share that with you this week.
Right. I know your goal is not to have any students left out, and
Right.
and the selection of the students that will be in the program would probably come to, you know, board telephones also about how come this child was able to get in, this child wasn't. So, and I know you're going to take us through to those questions. So that selection process should also be you know, shared, and so that we can answer some of those questions before they happen. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other board members have questions on ELT?
I do. Madam Superintendent, can you make sure that report is broken down by each school, by district, by schools and districts, please?
Yes.
Because in trying to assess the needs of the students, I guess I'm concerned that the children who need it the most are the ones who are not going to be receiving it. I mean, the schools that need it the most, just as with the placement of teachers, there seems to be a pattern here. And if we cannot fill the school seats, I mean, the teaching seats with teachers, why wouldn't the union allow a MOU that we can bring in people who can help us? There are people out there, they're the math, the engineers that do algebra, that teach algebra. There are a lot of organizations out there that are providing resources, and it's just not fair that our children can't receive benefits. I think it has to do with the amount of how generous the contract was. And I think it also, people are telling me that the late schools, people are not interested in arriving home at 7 o'clock at night. Okay, so I think it's a combination, but I feel that we should be able to bus children to resources. African Culture Center has a program. Maybe we can utilize them. There are other organizations out there. We should not just not allow our children to benefit from extended learning time because we don't have enough staff. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I'm sorry.
All
I'm
right,
sorry. Can I
Dr.
jump in
Gibbons,
one more
anything else?
time? I'll jump in one more time. We also have some colleges also with after school programs or maybe they can bring in some of those kids also. I know with the absence of Medaille College and some of the programs that they have, we know other colleges in the area was asking the district to step up a little bit about being able to hold more children in their programs. So maybe we can, have a discussion about that also.
Okay. I will assure that all these ideas are shared at the meeting on Tuesday, and we'll be able to share a report out to the board, broken down, if you like, by each of your districts, so that you know kind of where your schools are with it.
All right, thank you for the update, Dr. Williams. And that concludes our student achievement work session tonight. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Be blessed, everyone.
Good night, all. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
And staff members, I'm sorry, and staff members.